Good morning. Thank you for joining me in that meditation, and Count Basie for that song, Little Darling. And thank you for the music this morning, Richard, the trio, the choir, the soloists. Amazing. As they say in Congress, I would like to yield my time this morning to the choir, but it's probably not part of the plan. But the good news is that if my message doesn't go well, you've already had a wonderful morning, so thank you all. Please repeat after me. This is a day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is a day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. To quote Maya Angelou, we will be singing and swinging and getting merry like Christmas. And we can do that. We can rejoice and relax and trust God because we know it's all okay. God has it, right? Let's try to feel that for just a moment. If you would close your eyes again and imagine that you really do trust God. See that you are surrounded by God's light. Your breathing is slow and even. You're smiling a bit. You're relaxed. And you feel completely supported within and throughout by the love of God. That money situation you're worried about, you can relax because you trust God and you know it will work out. That relationship that has been damaged, it's okay. God has it. And even if we don't know what okay looks like just yet, we can trust that if we are trying to align ourselves with God's will, that the situation will work out according to God's good will. And just get a sense of how that feels, to relax in the knowledge that God has got it. We don't have to worry because we trust. And now as you open your eyes, see if you can keep that feeling, that peace, that ability to let go and relax and to trust. Psalm 37, verse 3 reads, "Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will do this." We know we can trust because we are told in Romans 8, verse 28, that all things work together for good for those who love God and who are called according to his purpose. Now, there are some important distinctions to make here. The good news is we can trust God. The bad news is that does not always mean we will get what we want. But as the Rolling Stones told us, you might not always get what you want, but what will you get? What you need, right? And trusting God does not mean that everything will go according to our plan. But in most cases, that's a good thing, right? Because we often don't know what's best for us or what is worse for us. And often what we think would be best turns out to be a mess. And what we think would be a disaster turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to us. So that's what we're trusting. We're trusting that God has our backs. We trust that we're being taken care of. We trust that we're being led and guided and often carried. We trust that if we do the right thing will happen. And that's an important piece. I think a very important part of this trust thing is trying to align ourselves with God's will. That we need to be trying to live our lives in a way that God would have us live them. Because if I'm doing everything my way, and then I think I can turn around and say to God, this is going to work out, right? Maybe not. Proverbs 3, verse 5 through 6 reads, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Lean not on your own understanding. And we have a part to play here too, right? In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. If I'm out there trying to run my own show, if I'm not trying to maintain my spiritual condition, if I only check in with God to say, you're good with this, right? Then I can't blame God when things don't go well. But if I'm trying to stay on the spiritual beam, if I'm praying that God's will always be done in my thoughts and words and actions, then I can trust that it will be okay in the end. And if it isn't okay, what do they tell us? It's not the end. When there is something I really want, I have learned to say, dear God, this or something better. Because I know I don't want anything for me that God does not want for me. I have a friend who was going through a job search recently, and she had an interview for a job she really, really wanted. So I told her my prayer, dear God, this or something better. And a few days later, she called me to say she prayed the prayer, but she didn't get the job. And she said the problem was she really wanted this. Sometimes we all want this, right? But that's the trust piece. Maybe we aren't supposed to have it. I love the line that says, if the train doesn't stop at my station, it wasn't my train. Another prayer I like is, dear God, please either give me what I want or help me want what I have. And one of the great things we learn as we get older is that God can change what we want. And that's been amazing to me. There are things I thought I couldn't live without that now I wouldn't want them if you gave them to me. God can change what I want. That person, that job, that possession I think I can't be happy without having, God can change the desires of my heart. But you know what makes it so hard for us to trust? Fear. We can be so afraid it won't work out. We are so afraid that God has lost our file. Or God has said, I'm really too busy with this crisis in the Middle East to spend a lot of time with you right now. But we know it doesn't work that way, right? God is always there for us, and it is an abundant universe. I have a friend who recently let fear get the best of her. She had had about 5 dates with the guy. She really liked him. Things were going very well, and they would talk or text several times a day, and then nothing. And she sent a text or two, but no response. So she said, well, that's it, it's over. I said, not necessarily, it's only been 3 days. But she said no, she was sure that was it. So at the end of those 3 days, she got a text from him saying, would you be available to talk later? Which I thought was great, but she said, oh, no. This is it. After 3 days of no contact, then a very formal, can you talk later? She said, it's obviously over. So she wrote back a text that said, oh, no need to talk. I figured out that you had moved on and no hard feelings. It was nice meeting you, and I wish you the best of luck moving forward. Well, that's not quite the end of the story. He did text back to tell her he had been having trouble with his phone. He hadn't received any text from her, so he was worried something had happened. And in the meantime, his brother had needed emergency surgery over the last few days, so he couldn't reach out like he normally would have. But after receiving her text, never mind. Goodbye and good luck to her, too. How often have we let fear rule the day? We mistakenly thought we weren't getting something. We acted on the basis of that belief, only to find out that we were wrong. We're afraid a relationship won't work out, and we subconsciously sabotage it. Then when it ends, we say, see, I knew they never cared about me. We think we might get fired, so we stop giving it our all, and then when we do get fired, we say, see, I knew it. We make it a self-fulfilling prophecy And then we say, why, God? Why? And God is saying, what are you blaming me for? I had everything under control. You're the one who jumped the gun. Isaiah 55, verse 8 through 9 tells us why we don't often understand what God is doing. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. God sees the whole picture. We just see a tiny little piece of it. Jeremiah 29, verses 11 through 13. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. If I'm trying to maintain my spiritual condition, if I am trying to do the right thing, if I am praying that God's will be done in my life, then I can usually trust myself and that inner voice within. And it usually doesn't turn out well when we do not trust that inner knowing, right? The other day I was reminded of something that happened when my son Alex was about 10, and I will warn you, this is also a bad parenting story. But I had Alex and his friend Riley out on the Potomac. We had rented kayaks, we were having a great time, and then Alex saw a rope that someone had tied to a tree, so you could come, grab the rope, jump, swing out, and then jump and land into the water. And Alex and his friends are saying, please, please, let us do it, let us do it. And I'm saying, no, this is not a good idea. And they're begging, and Alex is saying, you never let me do anything fun that all the other kids do. And I'm thinking, well, sometimes I really am overly cautious. So ultimately, I was just worn down, and I said, okay, do it. So then Alex says these words to his friend Riley, you first. No fool he. Well, Riley trusted Alex, and so he went. And this doesn't end well, right? Yeah. Riley grabs the rope and swings out, but instead of letting go, he swings back, only stopping when his foot hits a rock. So imagine how I felt delivering Riley back to his mother, limping. And of course, he had broken his ankle. And of course, it was the first week of summer, and his mother had filled up the whole summer with sports camps, which were not to be. So the lesson there is we trust God, not Alex. And we take everyone else on a case-by-case basis. And we remember to trust our instincts. And I thought of that the other day because I was thinking, we haven't seen Riley and his mom in about 7 years. Guess they're busy. But yes, sometimes we put our trust in the wrong things or the wrong people. Recently, I heard that old song by Anita Baker, Fairy Tales. Remember that? And I thought how that used to be my theme song after a breakup. And in the song, after the relationship that she had such high hopes for ended, she sings, you never came to save me. You let me stand alone, out in the wilderness, alone in the cold. I found no magic potion, no horse with wings to fly. I found the poison apple, my destiny to die. Okay, kind of dramatic, right? But when you've been through a breakup, it fits. And that's how we've all felt, right? You never came to save me. You let me stand alone. But I was never alone, because do you know who was always there? My God. Through every heartache, every reunion, every sickness, every recovery, every failure, every triumph, my God was there. Every dark night of the soul, God was with me. And when the sun rose every morning, and it has, by the way, every day of my life, even if I can't see it, it's there. God has been there. And that's why I can trust, because I have never been alone for a minute. But I'm the first to admit it is not always easy to trust. When I'm struggling, trust is not always my immediate reaction. I have to think right foot, left foot, breathe, pray. I remember that God will make a way where there is no way. And I trust God. And I also remember that I have a big part in how my life unfolds. I know that God can move mountains, but it also helps sometimes if I bring a shovel. There's a writer I love named Janine Roth, and she writes a lot about weight and food issues, so she's really writing about life and love and fear. And she calls trust the miracle that keeps my heart beating. In her new book called This Messy, Magnificent Life, a Field Guide, she writes about having a near-death experience and how it changed her. And she says that the average 80-year-old person has taken close to 673,000 breaths. And since she was around 60 at the time, she did not know how many breaths she had left. But after that experience, she decided to use whatever breaths she had left only on things that she loved. And she writes that the list was short: being with my husband, family, and friends, playing with my dog, being outside, writing, and teaching. I began saying no to parties I did not want to go to, invitations I did not want to accept. I quit a graduate program in which I was enrolled and started working on a book that I had wanted to write for years. I spent more time with trees. And she says that over and over again, with each day and each choice, she would ask herself, is this something on which I want to spend the breaths I have left? She said she knows now that we are only alive for a brief run, and she doesn't want to waste a breath. She's trusting. We don't know how many breaths we have left. What do we want to do with them? Sometimes we don't know it's okay to trust until we look back on something that has happened, and then we say, oh, okay, now I get it. That happened to a good friend of mine. She was engaged to be married when she was younger, and her fiance had moved from Minneapolis to New York to be with her, and he got a job in the company where she worked. He quickly became a rising star in the company. Everyone thought he was wonderful, including the woman he started secretly dating in the months before their wedding. And right before the wedding, he called it off. And of course, my friend was devastated. But in case she wasn't having enough fun, she had also sold her condo to buy a new place with her fiancé, and now she couldn't afford to do that, so she was homeless. Then she had to have emergency surgery. Oh, and she still had to work with her ex-fiancé. So let's just say her level of trust that there was some divine plan taking place wasn't real high. What she didn't realize was that God had put a guardian angel in her path. A man she had worked with in the past suddenly recommended her for a new job in the corporation. She got it, and it turned out to be the biggest turning point of her life. She traveled the world, she met and interviewed famous movie stars and sports figures, and she started on a course of what would be great personal and professional success. If we could only learn to trust in the middle of something like that. Right. Because all that time she was being held in the palm of God's hand. She just didn't know it. Now I have another friend who did trust. This friend had had a breakup, which seems to be a theme here. And she had gone to church where she ran into a man she had known just on a friendly basis for a while. He asked her for coffee, and 5 dates later, unbeknownst to the guy, she called and booked her family church for a wedding a year from then. Fortunately, he proposed 6 months later, and 6 months later they were married on the same day she had booked the church for a year ago. She knew, she trusted, and 2 children later, it all seems to be going well. Now, I have to tell you one quick joke about trust. So there was a man who distrusted authority. He distrusted anyone in a uniform. And one day, his house was on fire. And he's on the 3rd floor, leaning out the window, and the firemen are down below, and they have a tarp, and they're saying, "Jump, jump, we've got you." And he said, "Oh, no, I don't trust that. Put it on the ground, and then I'll jump." Sometimes you just have to let go and trust. Joshua 1 verse 9 reads, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." In Mark 9, Jesus tells us everything is possible for him who believes. And the father in the story cries, "I do believe. Help me to overcome my unbelief. I do trust God. Help me to overcome my lack of trust." Here's the message I would like to remind myself every day. Trust God. Be kind to yourself. Mistakes aren't real. Only love is real. It will all be okay. God has my back. Just trust him. Thomas Merton was a Trappist monk and a very prolific spiritual writer who authored these famous lines. "My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does, in fact, please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, I will trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone." Now that's trust. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going to happen. But I do believe that if my strongest desire is to do your will, dear God, and to try to align my will with yours, then I can trust I will be led and guided and taken care of. You know, half the time, I don't know which end is up. You say go left, I go right because I think I know a shortcut, and 2 hours later, I'm still driving in circles. I get the job I wanted, but I think, oh, since it came so easy, that must mean there's something better out there. So I turn it down and then don't have anything for months and months. Lean not on your own understanding, but in all things submit to him. And there are a few lines from a great Marianne Williamson prayer I would like to close with. Dear God, may I have faith. May I not be tempted to forget your power. May I not be tempted to forget your love. May my mind not stray to the might of the destroyer, but remember instead the might of the Lord. Tomorrow you shall show me. You shall have the last word, the final say, and so I shall not fear. You shall redeem me, I shall resurrect. You create from what the darkness has destroyed, for your power is infinite, your forgiveness total, your mercy complete. So shall it be that I might fall, but I will not remain down, for my Lord is with me. He shall lift me up. He shall create a new day. He shall bring me home. Praise God. Amen.
you.